S or 1790s.35. His steam locomotive used interior blade wheels guided by rails or tracks. Union Pacific 844 AFEF 34-8-4 Northern Type Steam Locomotive. The first full-scale working railway steam locomotive was built by Richard Trevithick in the United Kingdom and, on 21 February 1804, the world's first railway journey took place as Trevithick's unmanned steam locomotive hauled a train along the tramway from Penwide Arran Ironworks, near Merthyr Tydfil to Abercynon in South Wales. 33, 36, 37. The design incorporated a number of important innovations that included using high-pressure steam, which reduced the weight of the engine and increased its efficiency. Trevithick visited the Newcastle area later in 1804, and the colliery railways in northeast England became the leading centre for experimentation and development of steam locomotives. 38. Trevithick continued his own experiments using a trio of locomotives, concluding with the Catch Me Who Can in 1808. Only 4 years later, the successful twin-cylinder locomotive Salamanca by Matthew Murray was used by the edge-railed rack and pinion Middleton Railway. 39. In 1825, George Stephenson built the locomotion for the Stockton and Darlington Railway. This was the first public steam railway in the world, and then in 1829, he built the Rocket, which was entered in and won the Rainhill Trials. 40. The Liverpool and Manchester Railway opened in 1830, making exclusive use of steam power for both passenger and freight trains. Steam locomotives continued to be manufactured until the late 20th century in places such as China and the former East Germany, where the DR Class 52.80 was produced. 41. Steam turbines. The final major evolution of the steam engine design was the use of steam turbines starting in the late part of 19th century. Steam turbines are generally more efficient than reciprocating piston-type steam engines, for outputs above several hundred horsepower, have fewer moving parts, and provide rotary power directly instead of through a connecting rod system or similar means. 42. Steam turbines virtually replace reciprocating engines in electricity generating stations early in the 20th century, where their efficiency, higher speed appropriate to generator service, and smooth rotation were advantages. Today most electric power is provided by steam turbines. In the United States, 90% of the electric power is produced in this way using a variety of heat sources. 3. Steam turbines were extensively applied for propulsion of large ships throughout most of the 20th century. Present development. Although the reciprocating steam engine is no longer in widespread commercial use, various companies are exploring or exploiting the potential of the engine as an alternative to internal combustion engines. Components and accessories of steam engines. There are two fundamental components of a steam plant: the boiler or steam generator, and the motor unit, referred to itself as a steam engine. Stationary steam engines in fixed buildings may have the boiler and engine in separate buildings some distance apart. For portable or mobile use, such as steam locomotives, the two are mounted together. 43, 44. The widely used reciprocating engine typically consisted of a cast iron cylinder, piston, connecting rod and beam, or a crank and flywheel, and miscellaneous linkages. Steam was alternately supplied and exhausted by one or more valves. Speed control was either automatic, using a governor, or by a manual valve. The cylinder casting contained steam supply and exhaust ports. Engines equipped with a condenser are a separate type than those that exhaust to the atmosphere. Other components are often present: pumps, such as an injector, to supply water to the boiler during operation, condensers to recirculate the water and recover the latent heat of vaporization, and superheaters to raise the temperature of the steam above its saturated vapor point, and various mechanisms to increase draft for fireboxes. When coal is used, a chain or screw stoking mechanism and its drive engine or motor may be included to move the fuel from a supply bin, bunker, to the firebox. 45. Heat source. The heat required for boiling the water and raising the temperature of the steam can be derived from various sources, most commonly from burning combustible materials with an appropriate supply of air in a closed space, for example, combustion chamber, firebox, furnace. In the case of model or toy steam engines and a few full-scale cases, the heat source can be an electric heating element. Boilers. An industrial boiler used for a stationary steam engine. Boilers are pressure vessels that contain water to be boiled, and features that transfer the heat to the water as effectively as possible. The two most common types are water tube boiler. Water is passed through tubes surrounded by hot gas. Fire tube boiler. Hot gas is passed through tubes immersed in water. The same water also circulates in a water jacket surrounding the firebox and, in high-output locomotive boilers, also passes through tubes in the firebox itself. Thermic siphons and security circulators. Fire tube boilers were the main type used for early high-pressure steam, typical steam locomotive practice, but they were to a large extent displaced by more economical water tube boilers in the late 19th century for marine propulsion and large stationary applications. Many boilers raise the temperature of the steam after it has left that part of the boiler where it is in contact with the water. Known as superheating, it turns wet steam into superheated steam. It avoids the steam condensing in the engine cylinders, and gives a significantly higher efficiency. 46, 47, motor units. In a steam engine, a piston or steam turbine or any other similar device for doing mechanical work takes a supply of steam at high pressure and temperature and gives out a supply of steam at lower pressure and temperature, using as much of the difference in steam energy as possible to do mechanical work. These motor units are often called steam engines in their own right. Engines using compressed air or of the gases differ from steam engines only in details that depend on the nature of the gas. How compressed air has been used in steam engines without change. 47, cold sink. As with all heat engines, the majority of primary energy must be emitted as waste heat at relatively low temperature. 48. The simplest cold sink is to vent the steam to the environment. This is often used on steam locomotives to avoid the weight and bulk of condensers. Some of the released steam is vented up the chimney so as to increase the draw on the fire, which greatly increases engine power, but reduces efficiency. Sometimes the waste heat from the engine is useful itself, and in those cases, very high overall efficiency can be obtained. Steam engines in stationary power plants use surface condensers as a cold sink. The condensers are cooler by water flow from oceans, rivers, lakes, and often by cooling towers which evaporate water to provide cooling energy removal. The resulting condensed hot water, condensate, is then pumped back up compressor and sent back to the boiler. A dry-type cooling tower is similar to an automobile radiator and ice used in locations where water is costly. Waste heat can also be ejected by evaporative, wet, cooling towers which use a secondary external water circuit that evaporates some of flow to the air. River boats initially used a jet condenser in which cold water from the river is injected into the exhaust steam from the engine. Cooling water and condensate mix. While this was also applied for seagoing vessels, generally after only a few days of operation the boiler would become coated with deposited salt, reducing performance and increasing the risk of a boiler explosion. Starting about 1834, the use of surface condensers on ships eliminated fouling of the boilers, and improved engine efficiency. 49. Evaporated water cannot be used for subsequent purposes, other than rain somewhere, whereas river water can be reused. In all cases, the steam plant boiler feed water, which must be kept pure, is kept separate from the cooling water or air. An injector uses a jet of steam to force water into the boiler. Injectors are inefficient but simple enough to be suitable for use on locomotives. Water pump. Most steam boilers have a means to supply water whilst at pressure so that they may be run continuously. Utility and industrial boilers commonly use multi-stage centrifugal pumps, however, other types are reused. Another means of supplying lower pressure boiler feed water is an injector, which uses a steam jet usually supplied from the boiler. Injectors became popular in the 1850s but are no longer widely used, except in applications such as steam locomotives. 50. It is the pressurization of the water that circulates through the steam boiler that allows the water to be raised to temperatures well above 100 degrees C, 212 degrees Fahrenheit, boiling point of water at 1 atmospheric pressure, and by that means to increase the efficiency of the steam cycle. Monitoring and control. Richards Indicator Instrument half 1875. See indicator diagram below. For safety reasons, nearly all steam engines are equipped with mechanisms to monitor the boiler, such as a pressure gauge and a sight glass to monitor the water level. Many engines, stationary and mobile, are also fitted with a governor to regulate the speed of the engine without the need for human interference. The most useful instrument for analyzing the performance of steam engines is the steam engine indicator. Early versions were in use by 1851, but the most successful indicator was developed for the high-speed engine inventor and manufacturer Charles Porter by Charles Richard and exhibited at London Exhibition in 1862. 25. The steam engine indicator traces on paper the pressure in the cylinder throughout the cycle, which can be used to spot various problems and calculate a developed horsepower. 52. It was routinely used by engineers, mechanics and insurance inspectors. The engine indicator can also be used on internal combustion engines. See image of indicator diagram below. In types of motor units section. Governor. Centrifugal governor in the Boulton and Watt engine 1788 lap engine. The centrifugal governor was adopted by James Watt for use on a steam engine in 1788 after Watt's partner Boulton saw one on the equipment of a flour mill Boulton and Watt were building. 53. The governor could not actually hold a set speed, because it would assume a new constant speed in response to load changes. The governor was able to handle smaller variations such as those caused by fluctuating heat load to the boiler. Also, there was a tendency for oscillation whenever there was a speed change. As a consequence, engines equipped only with this governor were not suitable for operations requiring constant speed, such as cotton spinning. 54. The governor was improved over time and coupled with variable steam cut-off. Good speed control in response to changes in load was attainable near the end of the 19th century. Engine configuration. Simple engine. In a simple engine, or single expansion engine, the charge of steam passes through the entire expansion process in an individual cylinder, although a simple engine may have one or more individual cylinders. 55. It is then exhausted directly into the atmosphere or into a condenser. As steam expands in passing through a high-pressure engine, its temperature drops because no heat is being added to the system. This is known as adiabatic expansion and results in steam entering the cylinder at high temperature and leaving at lower temperature. This causes a cycle of heating and cooling of the cylinder with every stroke, which is a source of inefficiency. 56. The dominant efficiency loss in reciprocating steam engines is cylinder condensation and re-evaporation. The steam cylinder and adjacent metal parts forward/ports operate at a temperature about halfway between the steam admission saturation temperature and the saturation temperature corresponding to the exhaust pressure. As High-pressure steam is admitted into the working cylinder. Much of the high-temperature steam is condensed as water droplets onto the metal surfaces, significantly reducing the steam available for expansive work. When the expanding steam reaches low pressure, especially during the exhaust stroke, the previous slide posited water droplets that had just been formed within the cylinder forward/ports now boil away, re-evaporation, and this steam does no further work in the cylinder. There are practical limits on the expansion ratio of a steam engine cylinder, as increasing cylinder surface area tends to exacerbate the cylinder condensation and re-evaporation issues. This negates the theoretical advantages associated with a high ratio of expansion in an individual cylinder. 57. Compound.
Yes, let's take a small break, because I'd like to buy one more steam engine. So I will buy a Vulesco D20. It have a bigger boiler. I can get it like $150, but I need to go to my online banking and transfer some money. But this is an old Vulesco D16 with a 250 milliliters boiler. The D20 have a boiler 500 milliliters, and they have a manometer, and they have a water drain, and I think so this is called the cylinder, and the pistons, that's the one there, and then that's maybe the crank, but I need to read more. That's the wheel, that's the crank, I think, called the crank. That's the piston. Piston is inside like this one. This is the piston, like this one. This is the piston, this one, and crank. This is the cylinder. So, but I have to learn more about it. Let's put it back. I cannot do it like this, so I have to read more about it. So, but I will take a small break and buy me a small steam engine, but I have to go to my online banking, and I could charge the camcorder a little bit. So let's buy another steam engine, because they're very expensive. Steam engines, even model steam engines, they're very expensive. A boiler can cost like more than $1,000 if you buy a boiler. I'm thinking about to make my own steam engines called Olsen Steam Engines. So my name is John Olsen, so that's true. The steam engine is two parts, is the boiler part and the engine part. So I could start to make the boiler parts with a velvet. Then you can put all kind of engines to a pressure velvet. You can put the engines. Just need a boiler and some fire and safety velvet and flutes, then some velvet with the steam. Then you can add any kind of engines you like. So that's true. So I think I should start to build that boiler. And there will need to be like 1 liter, 1 to 2 liters. Need to be much bigger boiler. But we not do that today. I have this debt $1,000 every month.